everyone! Today we're going to be talking about inks and ink pads for stamping. I've bought and tried a lot of them, and so I'm going to share my discoveries and experiences with you so you can better decide for yourself which ones you'd like to get. So what I always recommend is starting out with a black ink because that's all you really need to get started. I have a stamp set here where you can see a lot of the images on here are outlined, and that works fine with black. But I do have these negative images here, which you'll see for a number of stamps, and it will go black if you use the black ink, so sometimes you might want to use color instead for those types of stamps.
Now I have two black inks here. I have a VersaFine Onyx Black and I have a Memento Tuxedo Black. This one is a really dark. I use this for sentiments. It's a really nice dark black inky ink. This one here is not as dark. It's still black. It's not as inky. I have used this for a long time, but this one's just a lot wetter than this. But this I use all the time because I use Copic markers, which are alcohol based. And when I use this one and to stamp, it will not pick up my marker color. If I use this ink and I'm coloring, my marker that black will bleed in with my color of my marker. One way you can avoid that is if you do a lot of heat emboss, then you don't really have to worry about the ink kind of merging together. So that's what I have. You could pick one. I think if I had to pick one, I would pick this one since I don't do a lot of heat emboss and I color very heavily with my markers. Otherwise, if you do a lot of heat emboss and you want a really dark black, this is a great one. I have both now, so I use whichever one works. And a lot of times I am using this one. So there you have for your blacks. Now, these are really the main two that I use. And mostly this one if I use this one at all. And I really haven't dived into too much color. Saying that, I have bought a lot of colored ink over time, and I'll go ahead and show you a few of those. So here I have Distress Ink by Tim Holtz. They're super, super popular, and they are very different kind of ink. They're wet and strange. I don't know how to really explain it. And the way I've really, oh, sorry, this is Ranger. I think Ranger by Tim Holtz, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. It might not be Tim Holtz at all. But these, oh no, I lied. It says Tim Holtz up here. So these inks are really interesting. I don't like to use them for color too much. The only real way I use these inks if I want to make certain backgrounds. So I saw this really cool technique where you had this sort of stained glass background, and that's what I did when I got these inks. These three colors specifically are what I use to make this card here, and I even stamped the brown for the butterfly. So it's a really cool look, totally different effect, not my usual style of card, but I really enjoyed that. Now I heard that the other thing great about these is that you can use them on photos if you wanted to make it look more antique or maybe create a sepia effect. I heard you can do these with these inks. They also make, you know, like here it says create an aged look on papers, fibers, photos, and more. It's acid free, so so there's a lot of things you can do with these inks. This was my favorite technique, and this is the main technique I use for these inks. I rarely stamp negative images with these colors. I think the reason is because maybe they don't turn out as crisp. But yeah, there's a lot of things you can do, but my favorite thing to do with these inks are to make backgrounds. There's one called, this is a good one, Vintage Photo, to make your paper look aged. I think there's another one called Antique Linen, which is a good one as well. All right, so there is also Colorbox inks. These are pigment inks. They are super wet. I've had this one for a few years, quite a few years, and it is so wet. It actually takes a while to dry. I recently tried to stamp an image with this, and it was quite a large image, and it was like wet for days. I even had to try to blot dry it, and it took some time. And now I'll tell you, I was working with plastic acetate to try to get it to dry, which probably if it was paper it would dry more because it would absorb. But these are great inks. People like to use these for embossing. I bought white specifically because I wanted to do some white emboss, and I'll show you what that means in a different video. But you can also buy Colorbox inks, great ink to use. I also have chalk inks. These are my chalk inks. I got them on sale, as you can see. And what I like about these is they're Versamagic, so they're by the same company that makes the Versamark ink here. Versafine, I'm sorry. Versafine. And it's like a good quality ink. These are pastel colors. Now, chalk inks don't have to come in pastel. They come in solid colors as well. And I have that here. I like these little dewdrop style ones because they're small and I don't need to have huge ink pads. I also work with a lot of stamps that are small, so it works out. And if I want to go over a large image, I could just tap across the whole image. So here probably see all these are individual stamps, so they'll work really well. This is probably the largest stamp here, and that would be a little bit more, but since it's an outline, not too much to go ahead and stamp color over that. But like I said, I mostly use black, and these are just additionals if I do have a few negative images I want to color. All right, what else can I tell you? I have two more to show you. I have this here, which is my stamping spots. I bought this when I met a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and what's kind of cool is that it comes in many different colors for little ones. Inks can be kind of pricey, so I think when I think about where I want to invest in my stamp products, inks are usually not one of them. Although, as you've seen, I've accumulated quite a lot over the years. This is kind of nice. I think I really like the bold colors. It was kind of different from a lot of the pastel bright colors I tend to use. This mustard yellow, this eggplant purple, really nice colors that I tend to use a lot. Cherry I use as well, but this is a fun one. The neat thing about Stampin' Up! Is they do have coordinated, their papers are also coordinated, so if you have to worry about getting things to match or look right, it's nice because the colors are coordinated. This is I believe I want to say it's called the Regal Collection. Oh, collection. Yeah, Regal Collection. So that's a nice one I've had for quite a few years as well. I don't use it a lot, but when I do need or want color, I can reach for this. I believe I use the mustard for stars. I think that's what I use the yellow for. And maybe the cherry for Riding Hood red for hearts. So yeah, that's what this one is. And then lastly, I'll show you, well, here's another one. This is a stamping pad called Crumb Cake from Stampin' Up! These are really old. I don't know if the colors are still available, but this is kind of your large ink. So it flips and clicks in like that. So this is nice for large images. Again, I don't mind using the small ones, but some people like the large ones. And that's this color. This is kind of a unique color. It's almost like a brown gray. It's kind of fun. So I did like this color. I thought it was really unique. This is the only large stamp pad I have of Stampin' Up! And then lastly, I have this. This is by Ink Essentials. It is also a Ranger. It's an embossed ink, clear ink. It's super wet. Well, I've used this quite a bit. And this creates like a wet look. If you want to use it as a regular stamp pad, it will create a sort of a wet look. And you can use it for a background. Let me see if I could show you. So here I have a Very Merry Christmas. And this I use embossed powder. And again, it's an outline. I could use black if I wanted to. If I want to use a different color, then I'll reach for my embossing inks. Oops. So I'll just show you. If you want to use ink just as a normal ink, it will stamp a wet look. See? This one's a little darker because I didn't clean my stamp that well, and I recently used black, but it creates a wet sort of, I don't know, shadow look, I guess you could say. I use this one for embossing. It works really well. I like it a lot. Not all inks work for embossing. For example, this ink does not work that well. As far as I have tried, this is a good ink. You can also use, you know, pigment inks. They're super wet. They work well. But people don't, most of the time, from what I've seen, depending on what color your embossing ink is, it may not matter. I'm sorry, your embossing powder is. It may not matter if to use clear. People use clear, I think, if they want to make sure they get the color of ink that they want. Another really popular pad that you'll see for embossing is the Versamark. It's called Versamark. It's black. And I mistakenly bought the Versamark Sparkle Clear, which sounds really fun, but for some reason I just didn't find it as wet, and I don't use that one for embossing. I use this one. So that's what I have for inks, just to give you guys an idea. Black is a great way to start. I recommend these two. And then otherwise, if you do go with colors, think about what you're gonna do. I find like the Distress inks not that great for just stamping color. Again, I'm not a big fan of stamping outlines with color, but these are great for if you want to do a lot of techniques. There are other things you could do with water and these kind of inks. So there's some really cool effects you could do with these if you're more into technique-based stamping. I do like Stampin' Up as a company. They do offer quality products, so you know that's not a bad way to go. I also like Versamagic, this brand to suit. I won't be able to pronounce that for you, but this is also a good ink. All the ones that I've shown you have been sort of vetted. I did some research and they work well. I do want to show you one more. This is a Brilliance Dewdrop Galaxy Gold. I believe, it's also by the company that makes Versamagic and Versafine. It's kind of cool because it's a metallic. I think for metallics, if I wanted a metallic look, I wouldn't go with the ink. I would actually go with embossing powder. I think the effect is more impressive. But I did use this ink for a number of cards that worked out pretty well. So you can also buy your ink in metallic color. All right, that's all I have. Thanks for watching. Bye.